removed, and I wrote a whole page on it, embedded the YouTube video on the page, and they took it down, so it's kind of a useless page now. So I'm making my own video on the lay wire TIG welding technique. First, before we get to that, I'm going to do a little root pass here in a piece of 1.5 inch tubing. It's about a 1/4 inch wall thickness, and so I thought, well, we'll just do a little root pass in here, and then I can show you the lay wire on top of the root pass. This is a keyhole dip technique. So basically what that means is that you watch very closely the corners of the bevel until they keyhole just a little bit. That puddle is going to resemble an old-timey keyhole in a door, and that's when you know when you dip and add rod. Now if the keyhole gets too big, you got to back off and back off the amperage or add more rod. See, it's starting to get a little bit bigger here. That's a little bit too much, so you want to back off and dip a little bit more rod. What this does, it just kind of is a sure, tried and true way to break those corners down. If you lay a piece of bigger wire right up in there, generally it'll look a lot better, but you're never quite sure that it breaks the corners down unless you can get a mirror in there and inspect it. When you're doing this, you're watching that corner break down. It's a little not quite as pretty on the inside, but X-ray technicians are trained to look for straight lines, and when you're keyholing, you do not leave a straight line. A lot of times it gives you better results if a pipe joint is going to be X-rayed. Another good thing is a keyhole dip technique root puts a heavier root in, a little bit more metal on the root, so you can use a little bit more heat and run a little bit hotter on the hot pass and not worry about sucking that root pass back. So it's just another technique, just another way of doing things, and we call this the lay wire technique. Lay wire because you're laying the rod in the puddle. Now generally use about an 1/8 inch rod for doing this for root passes and hot passes and thereafter, unless it's really small bore pipe. I'm using a 3/32 ER70S2 TIG rod here. Right here I'm dipping in and out. This is another way. If you really want to carry a little bit more metal and when you want to watch the front of that puddle and make darn sure that you're wetting in on the front of the puddle, dip it in and out. That's another way of doing it. But since this video is mainly talking about the lay wire, we'll just mostly focus on that. Lay wire generally looks nice. There is a risk of cold lapping when you do it. Old timers been doing it forever, and there's been many X-ray joints done just laying that wire in there. Now this joint here, stack 2 for the cover pass, looks like a patchwork quilt because I used like 3 different rod sizes and all kinds of different angles, sideways, horizontal, and so it is what it is. Okay. To show you a little bit more, this is just a vertical T-joint. So here we're using a round. I've got the machine set at 125 amps, but I'm not full pedal, so it's probably around 110 amps. And I'm using a 3/32 ER70S2 TIG rod, 2% thoriated electrode. I'm using a gas lens collet body with a 3/32 electrode. Again, probably about 20 CFH on the gas and about 110 amps. And I'm watching the toes of the weld. You need to be able to see that puddle follow you a little bit. If you move side to side and the puddle stays pretty much wet and red all the way across, you're a little bit too hot. When it just starts following you a little bit, that's a good sign, a good tip that it is just about the right amperage. Now you could walk the cup on a flat T-joint like this by turning the cup sideways and just wiggling it. However, it's a little bit cumbersome. Walking the cup is generally done more on pipe because the pipe's round and then the handle of the TIG torch doesn't get in the way. So I'm using one of my TIG fingers here, just propping right next to that weld. Finger never even gets warm. Material is nice and slick, lets me slide on up. That's a good tip. Thanks for watching. WeldingTipsandTricks.com.